Welcome to the launch party for Her Buried Lives, my debut adult psychological thriller. And I'm so excited to be sharing this night with all of you and my amazing co-host, Christina Delay, who also has a thriller coming out on Monday. And our lovely moderator, Julie, from Pages and Pens, Julie from Pages and Pens, who's also an author. And I have your book here as well, A Curse in Ash. So yeah, let's get the party started. Christina, do you want to just introduce yourself a little bit? Since we're sort of on my page and my channel, I hope everyone knows me. If not, I'll do a quick intro in a minute, but okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, so my name's Christina, obviously. So my debut psychological suspense is coming out on Monday. I've been writing for a little over a decade. I have some books out in another genre under another name. But this is my first psychological suspense, and it is super fun, super creepy. And yeah, I don't know what else we need to know about me.
Yeah, I'm in the middle of reading your book right now. I'm 50% through, and I'm really loving it. It's so fun, and I'm so glad that we sort of got to connect on this level.
Me too.
Because we knew we were. Yeah.
It was by accident.
Yeah, and I saw your newsletter, and I'm like, I'm releasing a thriller. Let's do a party together, because we sort of write in the same genre. So that's so fun. I'm glad to have you here.
Thanks for having me. This is gonna be great. And your book has been like I'm about like 83% through it, I think, and it's just like I love it. It's just like it just gets right under your skin and sticks there. It's just one of those. Yeah,
it's creepy, like my little tree here.
I like your little tree.
I love your little tree.
Halloween tree.
I was a good host. I finished both books, so I 10 out of 10 can recommend that you guys pick them up if you have not already. They were both absolutely fantastic. We've got Truth, Lie over this way. I was trying to figure out which way to point. And Her Buried Lives, obviously. Katlyn, do you want to start? Okay. Tell us a little bit about the premise of your book and a fun fact about writing it.
Absolutely. So Her Buried Lives is about a girl, a woman who doesn't really know a lot about her past. Her mother has been sort of traumatized about her past, and she sort of has kept it away from her daughter. And then a mysterious letter comes to their home and is asking them to come to her mother's, where she grew up, an old town called Orhaven, Pennsylvania. And in coming to that town, a lot of family secrets come out, a lot of town secrets come out, and it's just a lot of good suspenseful fun. There's a creepy old house, and there's a lot of secrets around town. And a fun fact, I suppose, about this book is that it actually started off as a young adult book. I started writing it in 2017 when I was writing a lot of young adult thrillers, and throughout the years, it sort of came to light a little more with an adult premise. So that's probably why it took so long to come out.
The good ones always do.
Yes.
Well, and your main character sees visions, right?
Yes. So it's sort of a line of, I talk a lot about like mental health and stuff in my thrillers. And I sort of take a fictional twist toward her specific mental illness. So yeah, that adds a little creepiness to it.
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah. Totally. I love it.
Do you want to share a little bit about your book about Truth, Lie and a little bit about your process writing?
So Truth, Lie is a domestic suspense, actually between two best friends. So these friends, they've been friends since college. They tell each other everything, know everything about each other, or so they think. So by chapter 4, one of the best friends winds up in the hospital in a coma, beaten beyond recognition. And it's up to the other one to figure out what happened. And through a little bit of investigation, she finds out that her friend is not who she says at all. So it's very much like dual lives, figuring out what's the truth through all these kind of misdirections and deceptions throughout the years. So it's really fun. And so the first line of the book is every good story starts with a lie. So I'm trying to tell the reader, like right up front, like, be on your guard. But yeah, so this book was so weird how it came to be, because typically whenever I get a story idea, I can usually see the ending really clearly before I understand how the rest of the book is going to go. This one came to me in fragments on different timelines through different perspectives, and I had no idea how it was going to end until like I was writing the last two chapters, and it finally like all clicked. I think that might be why some of the twists worked out so well in the book, because it was surprising me too.
I have a quick question for you too,
Mhm.
just in terms of your books, since I've finished both of them. But I was really intrigued by the way you played with like the now and the thens and the different timelines. Did you write one full timeline all the way through, or did you write it in the back and forth as well?
So mine, I wrote it in the back and forth. Yeah, that's because that's just how it came to me. Caitlin, how about you?
With mine specifically, a lot of the backstory came first. In terms of the timeline, I do have dual timelines in mine as well, and it's it's hard to say because you don't want to give away too many spoilers. I liked playing with like time itself and like present and future and past and all that fun stuff. So it's something that I tend to go for backstory first, because then I can sort of lead forward in that regard.
Well, and it's a fun just writing challenge, I guess, to play in two different timelines, and because you have two different perspectives too in yours.
Yes, our books are strangely similar.
I know. They're similar, and yet they're not. Like,
yes, yeah.
Yeah, we have a lot of the same kinds of elements in them, but I think it's so like I don't know about you, but like when I was writing and having to manage these two different people, and then at two different points in their lives, like my head was spinning. Like I had a really like hard time like figuring out what comes what and when through this. So like I had like this huge storyboard I was using, and that was like, you know, I had papers all over my room. Like I had a map of the story. Like it was just it was incredible how much planning it took to pull off two timelines. I never thought it would, but it does.
Yeah, and thrillers themselves lend to a lot of plotting as well, in terms of like red herrings and things like that. So with mine specifically, I'm very digital. So I had I don't know if you've ever seen the J.K. Rowling plotting outline where you have like all the subplots. I had to map it all out to see like what the other people were doing while the main story was happening, and like so it's
even though no one else will see that. Like,
I know, right?
You have to know. Like you have to know what these people are doing that really has no bearing on.
Yes,
we need to know.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, I get it.
I'm going to throw Amber's question up here on the screen. She asked for both of you, which character was your favorite to write?
I mean, I don't know if you could tell from the book. You know, obviously people say they're main characters, but I lived in Jenny's head for a while, but like outside of her, I'd have to say like the big bad, the villain character was my favorite, and I can't say who it is. It was so fun to sort of just dive into. I like I don't remember like where I heard it from, but someone had said that the best villains are like, you know, like really, really close in terms of like thought process and stuff like that to the protagonist. But it's that little twist that turns them like toward the wrong side. But I loved like seeing, you know, how they played off each other and how they had very similar ways of thinking, yet chose different paths. So I always love that.
I thought that when I was reading your book, it was just like how much they mirror each other, and they're like two sides of the same mirror. Like I thought that was a cool thing to watch like unfold and develop. So I have a lot of fun with side characters. And none of my side characters like have a POV, but they're just fun to write. So like Brian in my book, who is the boyfriend of Jane. He's just a sweetheart teddy bear, but he's got a little bit of a sarcastic sense of humor, and he puts up with Jane. So he has to put up with her. So I really enjoyed him. And then, my I guess my antagonist, Reeve, was a lot of fun. He's like he runs a escort ring in Austin, Texas. And so he's like the head of this kind of like the Austin Underground. And so he was a lot of fun. He's a dark, twisted guy. And so that was kind of fun to get in there and play with that.
So my next question for you guys would be, I know that you both have written in multiple genres. You're not, this is your big thriller moment, which I'm very excited for. I'm curious what you found different, either harder, more satisfying, about the process of writing a thriller versus other genres.
The thing about this one specifically, as I mentioned, that it did start off as a young adult book, is that I felt like I could go a little further when I made it adult, because I was writing the book. I wrote it like 3 times, start to finish, and it was just something, different about it. So I wanted to go a lot darker, and I think this is that change for me in terms of my books, staying on that darker tone. And in thrillers, you can pretty much go wherever you need to go. So that's definitely different. I usually have some sort of underlying gray area theme with my protagonists, but this one I could really push it to the edge. So
kind of the same. So I also write YA fantasy, and with that world, I'm able to, play with sarcasm a lot more and, like joke around with my characters. And there's still high stakes. There's still, intense moments. But it's a slightly different goal with the book. And so, yeah, like with suspense, able to like Katlyn said, go just a little darker with the action, with the subject matter, and not really have to worry about keeping things age appropriate, if that makes sense. So I think in that way it's easier to write. But on the other hand, I do think because it's a darker subject matter, it's not fantasy, it's things that could happen in the real world, I think it sinks deeper into the author as we're writing it. And so yeah, okay, I don't know about you, but I had to take breaks writing the book occasionally, because I'm oh, I need to go for a walk and see the sunshine after this part.
Yes, I agree. Especially since I had Julie, you hadn't gone to that one, but we go to the Highlights Foundation as writing retreats, and I had re-outlined this book as a thriller, an adult thriller at Highlights, and Highlights is in Pennsylvania. It's woodsy and creepy at night, and it was just the perfect setting. But most of the time I was okay, I just need to go for a walk. Let's go for a hike, because this is getting a little too immersive for me.
Yeah. So I actually came up with the idea for mine when I was leading a writing retreat in southern France. So nice. We were walking through some vineyards, and I was because I realized I was this different version of myself with my attendees versus than with my best friends. Mm-hmm. And so that kind of started germinating into how far can I take this? So yeah, it was kind of funny that in this gorgeous setting, I came to this really creepy story set back in Texas, downtown Austin. Yeah.
Well, I can say that you both absolutely nailed the creepy. And I know, Kate, you wrote a little bit in the house at that campus that absolutely terrifies me. So
yeah,
I think that
with the creepy basement. So that may be it.
I can't believe you went into the basement. I didn't go in the basement. There was a weird
I just opened the door.
Second floor. No, absolutely not. No, thank you. Nope.
You got to explore, see what's down there.
It's really the creepiest house. I don't know how people stay there. It's people sleep there.
Nope.
What is your favorite place to write? Christina, how about you?
Outside. Just about anywhere outside. If I can hear the wind in the trees, I'm pretty happy. If I have to be inside, this is my office / writing room, and it's a sunroom. So it has 3 walls of windows. And so it gets great sunlight, and I can spy on my neighbors, and it's perfect.
Do you have
So
any fun wildlife stories? Do you see any like squirrels or deer or anything like that?
Not here because we're kind of residential. Yeah, I've got one that's kind of gross, but it doesn't have to do with anything with when I was writing. So I don't know if we're going to go to that. But real quick, while we were in France, we were served, without us knowing it, nutria pate. That's water rat.
That's horrifying.
Horrifying. So yeah, that's my creepy thing. Yeah.
On that note, my favorite place to write, I don't really have a favorite place. I tend to really immerse myself in music, so I usually have playlists. So I can really write anywhere. I think that's more of a habit that I built up when I was working out of the home full time. That I could just I had to write anywhere. Like I've written on a stair climber on my phone in Scrivener. So I can write wherever. But like I have to have my music. Yeah, I can't write to like silence.
So what kind of music do you listen to when you write?
It depends. With this one specifically, this one in my first book, I've been able to listen to music with lyrics. Any other book I've written, I couldn't listen to lyrics. It was just like, I usually pick like movie soundtracks that have the same, they have the same vibe. TV show soundtracks.
Anything epic and dramatic.
Yes, absolutely.
Maybe this is why our books are similar.
I know, right?
That makes sense for both of your books, though. So this one, Marie wants to know, how long do you write for at one session?
I used to be able to, and then the pandemic hit and the kids were home, and I got really used to writing in 5-minute increments. So now when I sit down to write, like I have to like force myself to go 10, 15 minutes and then like get up and walk around and then come and sit back down and write, because my brain just got locked into this. You only have 5 minutes to get something out. Yeah. So I've been trying to get back to the point where I can just sit down for like an hour and a half and write nonstop, because that used to be what I could do. And I can't do that anymore. Maybe someday.
Yeah, it varies for me as well. I have like 2 hours in the morning that I do my author things outside of the day job. So if I'm writing, I can write in about 2 hours, but there's no like consistency anymore. This is why I like going to highlights, because there's like no TV, barely any internet. All the meals are taken care of, and you just write. So that's why I love going there, because then I can write for hours and hours at a time. But I wish I had more consistency.
It's too hard at home. We should always be on a writing retreat. And that's basically just what needs to happen.
Yep.
My question then is that I have found through my, like, again, recent thriller reading that I absolutely love the way that women specifically write thrillers. I don't know why, but there is something about the woman's like gaze on thrillers that just works for me. I think it's probably because I really like psychological domestic thrillers, and women are just amazing. So my question for you is, do you have a standout author and or thriller book that you can either recommend or was like really pivotal in your journey towards like thriller writing? But also, we always want recommendations. So those two.
Yeah. Julie knows my obsession with Alice Feeney. It's a true obsession. I read I Know Who You Are by her, and I just absolutely fell into like a hole. So she's fantastic. She is a UK author. She writes pretty widely within thrillers. Like she has a whole bunch of different ones. I actually pulled one up here. This is her latest. Daisy Darker. This is another retelling of And Then There Were None. Fantastic. It was so immersive. It's definitely different for her. And me and Julie talked about this after we both read it. And I love how she's always evolving in her work, which is fantastic. I want to shout out a friend of mine too, Rachel Herron, R.H. Herron, Hush Little Baby. This was really phenomenal as well. That is a recent read that has like stayed with me for a while after reading it.
Cool. So mine, Laura Than White, she is one of my favorite authors. I actually met her at an RWA conference a few years ago, and it was funny because she had won the Daphne du Maurier RWA Kiss of Death contest like years before, and I had just finaled in it. So like we had this like great conversation at her table, and anyway, so I immediately went and bought a book from her and read it on the way home, and then went and bought every single book. And she has this fantastically creepy way of describing setting to where the setting just like comes alive and pulls you in. And you really don't know what's going on. And she has a lot of like small town remote thrillers. So she has a lot set like up in like remote parts of Alaska, and you know, so it has also that creepy sensation of like survival skills. Like you really do have to be able to survive on your own to be able to survive this thing that's happening that would be difficult under normal circumstances. So she's absolutely fantastic. Adore her. And then also Mary, is it Kubica? How do you say her last name?
I don't know, but I know who.
I can spell it. Kubica. Her books I love because she always does some unique twist with them that you know, it's fresh, and yeah, I've really enjoyed hers too.
Liz asked, to get into the mindset of a new book, do you take a trip to a place, experience something for an idea, or does the idea just come to you via meditation, daydream, etc.?
I think for me, I've never actively taken a trip somewhere to do, you know, for a book. I mean, that would be lovely. But it's usually sometimes a dream, sometimes just like a really strong just thing that comes in my mind about a story. But I would definitely love to travel somewhere for books.
For me, to really get into the mindset, I do a lot of research. Like I do a lot of like Google satellite searches so that I can like go in and like see like the actual like streets and the buildings and where things are happening, and you know, if a bullet's coming from this direction, like what would it hit on the other side? Like, so I like really try to like put myself right there whenever I'm doing a more realistic thing like that. And then like a few of my books, I've been lucky enough to actually like go and visit the places where they were set. And so it's kind of cool to like, you know, go then and see how much of your research plus imagination fits into the real thing. And yeah, I think there was one of my books, part of it was set in this gorgeous church in Chicago, and I'd only seen it through Google Images, and then we actually got to go and visit it. My husband ended up taking like one of those like 360-degree photosphere shots, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So I could like take it home with me and like, you know, like stand in the cathedral as I'm like rewriting that scene. And so
that's so cool.
Yeah, it was cool. And then, you know, we had our, you know, kid, you know, running through parts of the photosphere. So it looked like a little ghost was like running around different areas.
So we've got Creative K Faye asks, do you have a small ritual or routine before you actually start writing?
Not necessarily. Like I said, it was more my playlists. I cannot write without them, so I'm always somewhere with headphones or, you know, at a computer or even just on my phone. So my ritual is music.
Yeah, that's mine too. I used to, when I didn't have kids, like I could like sit down and light a candle and, you know, like dim the lights and like, you know, really set the mood. Now it's like scramble, put in your earbuds. And usually like it takes me like, I have the exact same playlist, and it has to, like, I can't ever sort it. It has to go in order so I know what to expect.
Yep.
And so, like, I have to hear that first song in order for me to get into it. And then sometimes, like, if I'm really stuck on a scene or a story problem, I'll actually put one song that is like really just mellow on repeat. And so then it just kind of like drowns into the background. And for some reason, it helps unlock my thoughts. So yeah, so it's music for me too. It's just the most consistent thing that really gets me into the mindset.
We legit are the same person.
I know.
Like that, the last thing you said, I was like, I do the same thing. If it's on shuffle, immediately I'm like, no.
So
go back to the beginning.
We just need to share each other's playlists, and like it'll probably be the same one.
It probably
like
will
a
be.
shared Spotify album.
Yeah.
Because we're fully into fall, at least here in Pennsylvania, East Coast, North. We're fully into the spooky season, and I am wondering what you find to be the scariest thing about thrillers, psychological thrillers, maybe specifically. Like, what about them do you think speaks to the human in us, and what do you think is one of the scariest things that you can put like in a book, like one of the scariest like thriller tropes that you've come across?
I think that it can be anyone. Like, the best thrillers are those that, like, you know, you can put yourself in that person's shoes and just two decisions away from where they are. And I think that really taps into, you know, we all look back and we're like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe I got away with that in college and did not like totally mess everything up. You know, like we all have like those moments, like looking back at our lives. And well, unless you're an angel. But I think that might be why thrillers speak so much to so many people, because like we can all see ourselves there on either side, either, you know, in the victim role, in the antagonist role. I think that's what makes them so powerful and also really scary, because it's real. It could be real.
Yeah, I like that. I really like that. For me, it's more of the surprise. Like, I like being surprised. I don't really like predicting what's going to happen. There's some thrillers that like maybe I'll figure it out like right before, but if I know from the start what it is, and then like they say, oh, that's not it, and then it is, and I'm like, oh,
that's a letdown. Yeah,
it is, because I want to be tricked at the end, or like even if it's like, okay, it is, but then there's another twist, and it's like, oh, you got me.
Yeah.
I love that about thrillers. I don't remember the second part of your question, Julie. I'm sorry.
You got me. No, it was just what is your favorite thrillery trope or tool that writers use?
I don't know if it's a trope, but if it's like someone who's sort of close to you, like close to the protagonist, that they didn't see coming, or I didn't see coming either, and like the way it all weaves together, if it's believable, I really like that, because it was just like in plain sight the whole time.
Yes. Yeah, I was about to say something really similar. It's that looking back through, like when you get to the end, you can look back and see like all the setup to how you got to this big, huge reveal or twist at the end. But while you're reading it, like it's totally buried. You don't know. And I think that's something that thriller authors just do really well. Yeah, I like being tricked.
I like to be able to figure it out, but I like when they throw in like one last curveball, and I'm like, I had it partially right, and then they got me. You know? Yeah,
you get them before I do usually. So when someone doesn't get you, it's like, whoa, that must be a really good book.
How did that happen? Yeah, Christina got me.
Really? I wasn't gonna say it. I was,
dude. And I was talking to Amber, and I was like, I always figure it out. She's like, do you know yet? I was like, I have no idea what's happening.
Yeah, she's like, I'm 80-something%, and I don't know who it is, and I'm like, oh, she got you.
She got you good.
That's awesome. I love that.
I don't know how involved you guys are with your cover creation, but how do you come up with the cover art for your books?
This particular one, like I had a pretty good idea of what I wanted. I wanted to see, the dark and light side of my character, but last minute, so I'm going to get up for a second because I have to show you guys this. So last minute, I had my cover designer do this to the back. So here's the front of the cover, and then she did this to the back. I know.
That is so cool.
I love it. I love it. So then whenever you open it, these are the two best friends. They're cheek to cheek. Yeah. So
Oh my word.
That was so much fun. Like so much fun. Like, yeah.
And with mine specifically, he gave me two to choose from, and then we tweaked from there. But I have to say, he really nailed both of them in like two different ways. But I ultimately, like this one, it drew me in so much. With the clouds and everything, and it fits in the market currently. A lot of them are like that mysterious fog. So I think they did a great job. But yeah, it's a process to go through cover art design, to just little tweaks and everything.
And cover artists to me are just magicians, because you can tell them, like for my fantasy covers, I just tell my designer, like, I kind of think it should look kind of like this, maybe. And she comes back and like, that's it. Like, it's so amazing. Like, I don't know how they do it. I really don't.
Yeah, because they have to know the market, and they have to know what's selling, and they have to, just color wise down to font.
Font's huge.
Yeah.
Font is so huge. It has such a big impact. I never realized it before I started working with cover designers.
I would love to know. I'm a spooky reader, but not a spooky watcher. But I know that a lot of people correlate thriller books to thriller movies or thriller TV shows. So I'm wondering, if your main character was a television show or movie, which one would they be and why?
So this book, the very initial part of the story, that like the core part of the story, was based off of something that came out of Mr. Brooks. And I can't remember who's the main character now, the actor. But Mr. Brooks, it came out a while ago. It's Kevin Costner. Thank you.
I always remember him.
Yeah, I love that that movie, and it was actually supposed to be a trilogy, which I'm so disappointed in, because I love the first one, and like I could sort of see where it was going to go, and it's just based off a little part of that movie. Yeah. So that's the core of this story.
So when I was working with my agent on this book, on Truth to Reply, I turned it in and she goes, "Have you seen the show Good Girls on Netflix?" It's like, "No, why?" She goes, "You need to go watch the show." So I went and watched it. I'm like, oh my gosh, like even like the antagonist in Good Girls, like his name is close to my guy's name. And like, it's absolutely hilarious. And oh my gosh, it is so good. It's, so two sisters and a best friend, in order to start earning money, they start robbing grocery stores. And they're like housewives, like their moms. And so it's really twisty and good and dark, but also really funny. And so yes, that's what mine would be. It would be the show Good Girls.
Would you guys have anybody that you would fan cast as your main character?
I have not thought about this. I used to do casting for my characters, but this one, I don't have one.
So I think for mine, for Lily, one of the best friends in my book, I'd want maybe Blake Lively to play her, because she's got that, like, kind of high drama look. I don't know who would play Jane.
I'm horrible with that.
Yeah.
So even though I've read the books, I cannot give you any advice.
And then Creative K Faye asked, when did you realize you wanted to write and publish books? Christina, do you want to go?
Sure. So I was sitting at a desk job shortly out of college, and was writing like hobby stuff on my lunch break. And I think I had been asked to get coffee. Like, it was some meeting. I was the only girl in the office. So of course, I was the one who had to get coffee, right? And so I gave the guy a look and made horrible coffee for him, because I was not the person that was supposed to get coffee. And I went back and sat down and got back to my story, and I realized, like, oh my gosh, this is my happy place. Like, I need to make this work because this other thing is going to really drain me if I keep up with it. Like, I'm not going to be a person that I like to be around if I stay in this job for much longer. So yeah, so that's the moment, is when some guy asked me for coffee.
For me, I never really thought I could be like a writer. It just seemed at the time that I grew up that it was just something you had to like always be. So, you know, I didn't have any particularly strong like stories that I wanted to tell. So I, you know, went and I worked in science. I worked in a laboratory, and sort of when Twitter became popular, I connected with a lot of writers that I liked. I would just, you know, subscribe to them or follow them, as that we do on Twitter now. Uh, and a lot of them were talking about how they write like in between their jobs. And I thought that was so interesting. And I was like, well, if they can do it and I love all their books, you know, why can't I do it? So that was sort of the spark that got me going with writing and then eventually publishing.
Just given again that, you know, it's spooky season. Do you have, or are you a fan of thriller movies and or shows? And if you do have a fave for the season, share it with us.
I don't know. I like true crime stuff. I've been really loving the Confessions of a Killer on Netflix. That series.
So, yes. Okay. On, I think it's on Apple TV, Severance, which is, it's a little bit like your book, Katlyn. That is, it's like this like slow, like it's just like a slow burn. Like you and it just builds and builds and builds and like becomes like huge. So it's set in an office, but the whole premise is that these workers have undergone this surgery to split their brains so that they have a work life separate from their personal life. So when they leave the office building, they switch into their personal person and they don't remember anything about work. And then vice versa. So whenever they walk back into the office, their personal life switches off and their work life switches on. And it's like, oh, it's got 2 seasons out. Highly, 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 highly recommend. It's like, oh, it's so creepy.
I also like, I haven't watched it in a while, Black Mirror. It kind of seems like that, where it's like the individual episodes are sort of like, what if this crazy technology took over, or we solved this thing.
They get too real. That's you guys spoke about that a little bit too. The scariest thing about thrillers and psychological thrillers, like anything that's not paranormal, is that like it's real. Like your story specifically may not be, but it's real things that happen all the time. I don't love that. Like I'd rather watch like monsters tear stuff apart, and I'm like, well, I know that's not going to happen, so it's fine.
Yeah.
But like actually getting into like the depth of people's like twisted minds, I'm like, I hate it here, and I don't want to do it. But I love it. I still do it anyway.
Thank you so much, Christina and Julie, for being here. Thank you so much, everyone who came. It's such a fun, it's just such a fun day for me. And I'm so excited that all of you came and celebrated with us.